Hi everyone, my name is Michaela Lafferty, and for my older adult oral video presentation, I chose to interview a 68-year-old woman on November 12th around 3 p.m., and I was able to interview her for a good 45 minutes, and the method I used was taking notes during our interview. So to start, I would like to talk about Erikson's psychosocial theory of development. I chose to focus on stage 7, which is generativity and stagnation for my interview. The definition of generativity is creating a mark by engaging in acts in your community, family, and work which will affect future generations long term. It helps create a sense of usefulness and belonging, whereas stagnation is when you feel a failure to contribute to the society, which means you're not contributing to future generations and you're not engaging in acts which make you feel useful or belonging to the community. The stage really focuses on adults in their work, their family, their community, and future generations. I also chose to focus on an article called Examining the Psychological Identity Development Theories, a Guideline for Professional Practice, and that mentions how women specifically identify themselves within this stage and how conflict in each stage is regulated by a woman's internal behavior and external environment. So this article specifically relates to my interview and my interviewee because she internally and externally creates this sense of belonging by contributing herself in her society with her work, with her community, which later will help her feel useful and belonging and will make her feel as if she's helping her future generations. Like I said prior, I did choose stage 7 in Erikson's theory, which is focusing on generativity and stagnation, and now I would like to dive into life experiences that have affected my interviewee's life during this developmental stage. So my interviewee really focused on becoming a grandmother and being active within her church. She talked about how these two experiences have changed her life during that time period and how they've helped her in many ways. They were difficult and challenging, but also she felt as if they helped her grow and they helped her find that sense of belonging, like I stated above. So I also wanted to focus on an article called Viewing Generativity and Social Capital as Underlying Factors of Parent Involvement. Specifically, I would like to talk about this article in relation to becoming a grandmother. Stevens and Patel state that parent involvement helps fulfill generativity. The interviewee was very involved in her grandchildren's life, which helped fill this sense of usefulness. She felt as if she was helping her grandchildren, which would also be helping future generations by being an active role in their lives and being so involved. She also talked about becoming active within her church. She became an active member in her church, which includes daily services, activities, and community service. Her time and dedication to the church has helped her feel useful and accomplished. My interviewee really focused on how she spends a lot of time with her church and other practitioners within her church, spending time during their services together, doing activities, completing community service. She feels this sense of belonging and dedication while she's at church with these people. And she feels as if her presence and dedication to the church will help future generations. And she feels as if she's doing well for her community. Although my interviewee definitely had very positive experiences within this stage, she also has challenges that have occurred from the ages 45 to 65. Some challenges would be her health and watching her children struggle and be put in bad situations. Specifically focusing on health, as you get older, health problems may occur, which obviously took a toll on her and have affected her physically and emotionally. She said she felt as if she couldn't contribute as much to her grandchildren, to church, to work, because of some of her health issues. Secondly, watching her children struggle and be put in bad situations. She also felt as if she wasn't contributing or being useful to her future generations while she was watching her children struggle and be put in these bad situations. Although she was focusing on her work and her family and community and doing all the right things to complete generativity, she felt this bit of stagnation because she wasn't able to help her children and fix their problems. Some accomplishments she had during this time was definitely working full-time, becoming a grandmother, and being active within her church. Although as she got older, between the ages of 45 and 65, she was still able to work full-time and provide for her family, provide for herself, find financial security. Like I said before, she became active within her church. She became a grandmother. These are all things she talked about as being an accomplishment and something that she's super proud of. Now diving into the psychosocial crisis resolution. So specifically for stage 7, the psychological crisis would be whether or not the individual feels useful and accomplished. And if the individual does not feel useful or accomplished, they may become self-absorbed. Specifically for my interviewee, she was able to find a type of resolution in this crisis and this stage by becoming a grandmother and focusing a lot of her time on her grandchildren. By working full-time, she was able to keep that security and freedom financially. And by being active in her church, she was able to focus a lot on caring, and she was able to focus a lot of her time and energy on other people, which made her feel accomplished and not become self-absorbed. Next, during this psychosocial crisis resolution, we do see issues of diversity. So some factors or events that have affected this would be working full-time. And the issues of diversity with working full-time could be her gender. The interviewee being a woman, she grew up thinking that being a stay-at-home wife and mom was her only option. As she got older, she realized that she wanted more for her life, and she wanted more than just taking care of her children. She wanted to be financially stable. She wanted to be able to provide for herself. She realized it was very important to her to be able to provide for herself and her family. She wanted to be equals with her husband, and not all of her family was supportive of that decision, which created a lot of conflict, and that would definitely be an issue of diversity for my interviewee. Another biopsychosocial factor or event that has shaped my interviewee could be her lack of education. The interviewee that I chose did not have much education because of the time period she was born into. Her lack of education limited her job options, which inhibited her in feeling powerful and useful in many work atmospheres. She didn't feel as if she was able to gain job experience because of her lack of education. She wasn't able to get a job that a male would get that her husband might have been offered because of her lack of education. The interviewee also suffered from oppression because of her lack of education and because of her gender. She did not have equal opportunities growing up because of her gender, but also recently because of her lack of education. Growing up, males were, able to provide for their families, and they were offered good jobs because they were able to provide for their families. So my interviewee did not feel as if when she got older that she was able to get a decent job because she had no job experience, but she also didn't have education. Lastly, another psychosocial crisis resolution was definitely larger policy. Larger policy has affected my interviewee because women's rights gave her the opportunity to live in a time where she's able to work outside of the home. Working outside of the home and gaining financial freedom has helped my interviewee feel like she is contributing to future generations. The larger policy has created women's rights, which has also directly affected my interviewee, but will also affect women for generations to come. My interviewee talked about how larger policy and government decision has affected her because she is now able to feel as if she's able to contribute to society, pay taxes, become financially stable, and show other women that it's okay to have a job outside the home. It's okay to focus on yourself and focus on education. She also stated a really important quote that I wanted to share with a lot of other people, especially me being a new mom. This resonated with me a lot. She wanted to point out that it is important to remember you're able to be financially free, gain an education, and have a good job, but also still be a good mom. Not stated in the PowerPoint, but also for psychosocial crisis resolution, which really resonated with my interviewee, was her family. She felt as if she leaned more towards generativity in this stage of life because of her family. She felt very empowered by being a mom, especially a mom who was able to work full-time, become a grandmom, and staying focused and dedicated to her church. She was able to feel a sense of belonging. She was able to feel a sense of connection. She felt as if she was helping others grow and be empowered for future generations to come. When I talked to her specifically about her involvement in future generations, she felt as if her part in the church, that she felt as if she was helping other practitioners feel more connected to God, more connected to the community, more connected as a mom, a grandmom, a worker. And in many other senses, she took a lot of pride in being able to connect with all of these bigger topics, but at the end of the day, come back together as one, as being a woman in this stage, being a woman now who was a little bit older, who has some life experience. She took a lot of pride in being a mom and being a grandmom, being able to juggle all these things, which has helped her feel empowered over the years. The additional theory I chose to focus on is social learning theory. Social learning theory focuses on people being active within their own learning. Social learning theory also focuses on how people learn by others, which is called modeling. The interviewee mentioned how she's seen her friends and even daughters working, which led her to want to work full-time and provide for herself. She also mentioned that she likes being at church because she's able to learn from her pastors and other practitioners. The interviewee talked about how she's seen her daughters and friends working, and they led by example and pushed her to get a job so she was able to work and provide for herself. The interviewee talked about how she wasn't able to buy her grandchildren things without asking her husband or her own children, which really bothered her. So getting a full-time job and being able to provide for herself was very important to her. Brower and Tittle use rewards such as money within the article to explain social learning theory and reinforcement. My interviewee has used money and financial freedom as a reward as to why having a full-time job is beneficial to her. I do think that reinforcement is used within my interview and my interviewee's life. Money was definitely a reinforcement for her. It was a reward. So when she worked and got money, it was a reinforcement as to why she should keep working and what comes with having money and having a full-time job, which is financial freedom. For social learning theory, there definitely are some limitations. Rogers states that the limitations surrounding the theory include that motivations of the individual are not included. The theory does not mention a person's motivations for their actions and how interactions between people and the environment affect the person's motivations. The theory talks about modeling and being surrounded by others and how a person learns, but it doesn't specifically talk about a person's true intentions and their motivations for why they do things, why reinforcements work, or why rewards work, why punishment works. And lastly, I would like to end my presentation with my references, but also to let you guys know that my interviewee did mention that she felt as if she is in a generativity point of view for this stage of life. She feels that she created a mark that will affect her future generations, and she does feel as if she engages in acts that are beneficial to her community, her family, her workplace, and her environment. I would like to thank you guys for listening. Have a great semester.